Tonight, millions of free rapid tests as Victoria faces a supply shortage and a record day of nearly 4,000 COVID cases. Isolation rule changes on the cards to ease workplace pressure as Queensland dumps a controversial travel test. Bars and restaurants face staff shortages and COVID cancellations, but Melbourne's still ready to celebrate New Year's Eve. Melton train station a crime scene after a deadly stabbing. A truckie facing serious charges over a horror Calder freeway crash. And how the Aussie cricketers celebrated their Ashes series win on an unexpected day off.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor starts now.
Good evening. An emergency national cabinet meeting has been called to overhaul COVID isolation rules as daily cases soar to nearly 4,000 in Victoria. The state government's ordered 34 million rapid tests as chemists run out because of overwhelming demand.
As soon as pharmacists like Jane Mitchell put more rapid antigen tests on the shelves, they get snapped up.
We received approximately 1,000 today and we've nearly sold through.
There are now shortages statewide. Supermarkets have put on sales limits, the demand skyrocketing as Victoria recorded a new daily high, 3,767 new cases. 5 people died with COVID. 397 people are in hospital, up 10% on yesterday.
The trajectory that we're on, coming off Christmas, coming into New Year's, where we would expect to see that number sadly continue to increase.
So the state government has now bought 34 million rapid antigen tests and will distribute them free to families throughout January, starting next week.
We want to make sure that we have the most effective delivery system to Victorian families.
I can see it being a very big problem.
That's because there are no details yet on how tests will be distributed and who will do it.
It's all very messy at the moment.
And worse, some pharmacists have had orders for coming days cancelled. They're now going to the government instead.
I don't know when or if I will get any more stock.
The Andrews government is furious, saying it's been forced to do this because Canberra has not.
As per usual, the states have had to step up over the course of this pandemic and fill the gap that's been left.
This is the normal process. States provide these issues of tests. The Victorian government is doing what they're doing. That's their job, and I'm glad they're doing it.
He pleaded, only test for a reason.
What's not necessary is for people to be going out and bulk purchasing rat tests and having them every other day on a casual basis.
Case numbers have exploded across Australia, more than 18,000 today, by far a new pandemic record. In Victoria, 1,000 more than our previous high. In New South Wales, a staggering 11,000, almost double their previous worst daily tally.
We know that Omicron, on all the evidence internationally and now here in New South Wales and Australia, is certainly far more transmissible. So chances are you're going to get it. We'll all get it.
A record too in South Australia, 1,471.
We're seeing the numbers in South Australia double every 3 or 4 days.
And in Queensland, more than 1,500.
We are moving to rapid antigen tests as a valid test for interstate travellers.
That means to go there, Victorians will no longer have to do a full PCR test, easing the huge testing queues.
Take Boxing Day, for instance. Over 40% of the tests that were done at PCR state locations were for interstate travel. That's a lot.
And the state government next week will boost its booster program to try and get ahead of the escalating COVID crisis in Victoria. Thousands of workers will return to work next week at 40 state sites. GPs and pharmacies will have extended opening hours. The aim, to get between 250,000 and 300,000 booster shots into the arms of Victorians every week, right throughout January. Mike?
with the latest. National Cabinet's top priority tomorrow will be to ease pressure on workplaces by reducing the number of employees in isolation. The definition of close contacts will be changed, so fewer people will need to get a test and stay at home while they wait for a result.
Isolation rules are causing chaos at testing sites and workplaces, including restaurants, supermarkets and airlines, as well as hospitals, because staff either have COVID or are considered a close contact.
The whole health system is under threat because just when we need them to be right there at the front line to look after everybody, they're having to be furloughed for 10 days when probably that's not needed.
Tomorrow, National Cabinet will discuss how to end worker shortages and reduce the pressure on testing sites.
What we're trying to do here is to go for the best bang for the buck, make sure that people that are queuing really need that test.
The recommended definition of a close contact being considered is someone from the same household or someone who cares for a COVID case or has spent more than 4 hours in a house with the infectious person.
We just can't have everybody just being taken out of circulation, and particularly given the fact that we are not seeing this impact on our hospital system.
Also on the cards, reducing the 10-day isolation time for positive patients.
Around 5 days is an incubation period for Delta. It's about 3-4 days for Omicron.
US Centre for Disease Control recommends 5 days quarantine for asymptomatic COVID cases, then mask wearing. While in the UK, many cases can leave isolation as soon as 7 days with 2 negative rapid tests.
I think the federal government has to say why it's not going to make the same decision.
I support the change to 5 days as long as the authorities provide the individuals with a rapid antigen test on that last day.
Businesses are also backing calls for shorter isolation periods for positive patients and their contacts to give them more certainty in the new year.
We're losing a lot of people that are wanting to work but just can't because of the isolation requirements. We're also losing confidence in the consumer that wants to go out as well.
It gets people back to work and back to life sooner. Absolutely, it's a sensible way to go.
Hope Wilson, 7 News.
Victoria's COVID commander is defending his decision to fight to suppress details of a court ruling about access to private QR code information.
We have always taken the strongest possible measures to ensure that all public health information is protected, all personal confidential information is protected and only used for the purposes of contact tracing and dealing with this pandemic.
How much of Victorians' taxpayer dollars were spent in an effort to suppress the truth?
It's been revealed WorkSafe Victoria unsuccessfully applied to access the data as part of an investigation into the state's deadly hotel quarantine program. There are fears staff shortages and COVID cancellations could have a major impact on Melbourne's New Year's Eve celebrations. Sarah Jones joins us, and Sarah, the hospitality industry is still confident it'll be a busy weekend.
Mike, hospitality venues are hoping to put the past 2 years behind them, but still COVID is trying to ruin the party. Still, preparations are well underway to accommodate the tens of thousands of people set to flock to the city this New Year's Eve. Preparing for what's hoped to be a bustling New Year's Eve. Nomad on Flinders Lane, almost fully booked outside, taking part in Melbourne Council's Street Feasts program. But inside, numbers are down.
With the cases kind of circulating and people wanting to protect their loved ones over Christmas, I think a lot of people sort of started getting a little bit concerned and dropping off a little bit.
Our resilient hospitality sector also pushing through staff shortages to ensure New Year's Eve is perfect for diners wanting to celebrate the last few hours of the year.
Not doing lunches this week has allowed us to kind of trade the extra shifts and put the staff where we need them to go. So you kind of got to make the chops and changes where you can to fill the bigger shifts.
We don't have enough staff. Well, I'm working 16 to 18 hours a day as an owner. I never worked before like that, but I have no choice.
The Adelphi Hotel and adjoining restaurant are both booked out.
It is just looking great, and people have been flocking in to come to Adelphi.
And despite last-minute cancellations due to the high number of coronavirus cases, the Langham is also fully booked.
We've experienced the highest demand in the history of the hotel, with many of our guests making those bookings well before October.
42,000 people have snapped up all the tickets to designated celebration zones across the city. Street feasts along with fireworks displays, hopefully enough to kickstart the hospitality sector for a better year ahead.
I want to say goodbye to 2021 and welcome in 2022.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
A stabbing victim has died in a stranger's driveway after running to the home in search of help. His killer is on the run after the attack at Melton train station.
With an armed killer on the loose on the streets of Melton, police were taking no chances. Heavily armed tactical police were deployed to the crime scene to restore order. Homicide detectives took on the task of identifying and tracking down the suspect.
But obviously, we're always concerned, when we see this sort of violence displayed out there in a public place.
Around 2:30 this morning, the 40-year-old victim clashed with another male near the taxi rank at the Melton train station. The situation quickly escalated and the victim was stabbed in the chest. Critically injured, the Melton man ran to a house across the road from the station seeking help. He was treated by paramedics but couldn't be saved. The killer took off in the opposite direction with a group of males believed to be of African appearance.
We're very keen to identify these people and obviously bring this to a conclusion for the victim and the victim's family so that we can try and explain why this happened.
Police have yet to recover the weapon used during the fatal attack. They've searched the train station in case that weapon was dumped by the killer as they made their getaway. Police are investigating whether there are any links between the fatal stabbing and other recent violent incidents in Melton. This afternoon, a backpack containing a shoe and a baby doll became a possible clue after it was found along the route of the getaway made by the killer and his associates. Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
A truckie has been charged over a crash that killed a 2-year-old girl on the Calder Freeway. Cam Bowe joins us, and Cam, he's facing the most serious of driving charges.
Mike, the 42-year-old from Donald has been charged with culpable driving, causing the death of a little girl. The toddler couldn't be saved after a truck ploughed into the back of her family car on the Calder Freeway near Buller Road earlier this month. The truckie has been bailed. He'll front the Melbourne Magistrates Court in May. The girl's mother was critically injured in this crash. She remains in hospital in a stable condition. Her father and sister were also hospitalised. They have since been discharged. But Mike, a tragic collision, and we'll learn more about it at court next year.
Cam, thank you. A day on the water has left 6 people injured, including 5 children, after a boat's engine caught fire. One girl was flown to the Royal Children's Hospital suffering upper body injuries from the blast. It happened on the Murray River near Mildura around 10:30 this morning. Police will now investigate what caused the blaze. A 24-year-old man has been carjacked and run over on his birthday as thieves stole his car in Melbourne's West. He was dragged along the road by his feet. His wife watched the ordeal unfold.
A man run over by his own car outside his home in Truganina. The horrifying moment, the 24-year-old was carjacked and dragged several metres down the road by his feet, caught on CCTV.
We started hearing some screams. They weren't very loud to start with, but then within about 10-15 seconds, it got far worse.
I was watching the TV actually, and suddenly I heard a big noise and continued noise. Then I came out and then I suddenly realized these people, one guy was wounded.
Jaspreet Singh was pulling into his driveway when 3 men demanded his car keys.
He was being very polite with them, just telling them we don't have anything, just move away, go from here.
That's when they struck, snatching the keys from him and jumping in his car.
My husband is still in the car, so he gets dragged till the road.
His wife and her car were their first target.
Got around the car and started knocking, so one of them was trying to talk to me.
Mr. Singh was taken to hospital with serious injuries. The car was found dumped here on Kavanagh Street early this morning out of fuel, but police are yet to make any arrests. Mr. Singh has since been released from hospital, but physical and emotional scars will remain. Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
Melbourne's hometown Ashes hero Scott Boland faces a nervous wait to see if he'll hold his spot in the side for next week's 4th test. The Aussies enjoyed some bonus time off at a coastal brewery today, vowing to inflict even more pain on England.
The beer flowing, the Ashes secured. Australia's triumphant test team soaking up the sunshine on the Mornington Peninsula. St Andrews Beach Brewery, co-owned by David Warner. Cheers, mate. The perfect place to toast a record victory alongside family and friends.
Great camaraderie in the team. You can see everyone's smiles on their faces. When we've got our full strength team together, we're quite unstoppable.
As the celebrations continued, England was sent back to the MCG nets. A small contingent, including Stuart Broad, returning to the scene of their demoralising 3rd test defeat. Scott Boland's name officially added to the MCG honours board today, a permanent reminder of his stunning man of the match debut performance. What is going on? Incredibly, he could find himself dropped for the returning Josh Hazlewood in Sydney.
I think that Scott, on merit, probably deserves a spot, but when a legend comes back like Josh Hazlewood, you're probably going to have to make way.
Brad Hodge was famously axed not long after he scored a double century against South Africa in 2005. He might be about to surrender the tag of the unluckiest cricketer in Aussie Test history.
I hope I hold on to it for Scotty's sake, I must admit. It's horrible. It really is a tough thing, but he's had a wonderful couple of moments in his life.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
And Andrew is live at Marvel Stadium with a look ahead to Sport Macca. There's unfinished business in the Aussie camp.
Mike, they're eyeing a series whitewash over England, and one Aussie champion wants to extend his stunning career with another selection surprise on the cards for Australia ahead of the 4th test in Sydney. Plus, Ash Barty gets a sneak peek at Rod Laver Arena, reacquainting herself with defending champion Naomi Osaka. And it's party central in Hobart as Blackjack cleans up in the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. I'll be back a little later on with news on a big day for LeBron James, just ahead of his 38th birthday, Mike.
Okay. Thanks, Macca. See you soon. The victim of a vicious crime in Fitzroy 40 years ago is bravely speaking out. How she's helping police find her attackers is next on 7 News. Plus, an increasing number of younger men falling off ladders. The new warning. A violent axe attack on a female employee in Footscray. And later, how a roll of film found in an op shop developed long-lost family memories. A manhunt is underway across Melbourne's west to find a violent thug who used an axe to rob a convenience store on December 12. Police say the thief was seen riding a silver bike past the Footscray shop multiple times before approaching the female worker and demanding cash from the register. The accused is described as having a distinctive walk. A woman is seeking justice almost 4 decades after she suffered through a terrifying sexual assault at the hands of 4 men. The victim says the attack in a Fitzroy apartment destroyed her life, and it's time to speak out.
The day Carlton won the 1982 VFL Grand Final is a day sex abuse survivor Shani can never forget.
They're disgusting. I've never forgotten anything.
This is what Shani looked like back then, aged 19, and planning to watch the game with a man known as Chris she met through her neighbour in Carlton. But when they arrived at a Fitzroy apartment, he left her alone with 4 men.
One of the men attempted to sexually assault her, and after she protested, she was carried to the open lounge room and dangled out. She was brought back into the room and subsequently sexually assaulted by each of those men.
I have nightmares. I don't know who I am.
Unable to bear the torment any longer, Shani finally reported the horrific ordeal to police in 2019 because she wants her abusers to pay for what they've done. Today is the first time she's been able to speak publicly about what happened to her in the high-rise building.
My family don't understand me. I live alone like a recluse. I'm just so sick of it.
Police have released photo fits of 2 of the men, hoping the public can help track down her attackers, who'd now be in their 60s. Ashley Kanowski, 7 News.
Another young victim of the Tasmanian jumping castle tragedy has been farewelled. 12-year-old Peter Dodd has been remembered as a caring soul with a mischievous streak and a love of learning. It's been revealed he tried to help the other injured children before he needed treatment.
Peter, you're a firecracker of a kid and your spark will forever live on in our hearts. 6
children died in the accident, 2 more remain in hospital. Quick-thinking firefighters have stopped a blaze from spreading between units in Craigieburn. The fire broke out on the first floor of one home early this morning and quickly destroyed the roof. A smoke alarm alerted residents to the danger.
Smoke alarms have been proven to save lives and they've done that again here.
The cause is under investigation. Men are being urged to wear a helmet when they climb a ladder to avoid suffering serious head injuries if they fall. And increasingly, the victims are likely to be men in their 50s and 60s.
DIY jobs around the home spike over summer, and so too does the risk of serious injury.
The key is be careful of the odd job. That's the one that will catch you out every time.
Gary Mann knows firsthand he suffered life-changing trauma in a ladder fall.
When I was working at a friend's place in Richmond, I got him to walk away from a ladder that he was footing to switch on and off a light switch. He took 3 steps away and the ladder fell, and I fell 6 metres with it.
Injuries from ladder falls have jumped 49% in the past 2 years, with Australians spending more time at home during the pandemic. 36 Australians died falling off a ladder last year. Most victims are men aged in their 50s and 60s.
To fall, so always think about the unforeseen things. And the impacts on your family and those caring for you as well.
Simple tips to avoid a fall include making sure your ladder is fit for the job, staying in the centre when you climb, working only within arm's reach, and never leaning too far from a ladder.
The people who die from ladder fall injuries tend to die of head injuries, brain injuries, is that people pop a helmet on.
It only takes a few extra seconds to set the ladder up properly, and it's more than likely that you'll have a successful trip up and down the ladder.
Hope Wilson, 7 News.
Time now for a look at the weather with Sonia Marinelli. And Sonia, you're keeping a close eye on the impending heatwave.
I certainly am, Mike. We're preparing for a spike in scorching heat over the New Year holiday. It starts tomorrow. So over the next 3 days, most of the state is under a low to severe heatwave advisory, including the city. But today we went back to back with another stunner. The city hit 22.4 degrees and it is holding close to that now on this beautiful evening. We'll be back after sport with the full forecast, Mike.
It is a beauty. Thanks. Paddy Newton's posted a moving tribute to her late husband Bert. Her message to Australians is next on 7 News. Plus, a pilot's final words before a private jet crashed into a suburban street. Hugh Jackman reveals why he's cancelled his Broadway show. And dogs learning to paddle to stay safe this summer. Paddy Newton has posted a moving tribute to Bert after spending her first Christmas without him. She shared a photo of Bert with some of his grandchildren and thanked Australians for the thousands of cards and letters she's received since he died in October. Paddy says the empty hole and heartbreak she feels is enormous and she just loved him too much. Australian producers are warning they're facing major losses if critical labour shortages aren't addressed. Delays to a visa scheme to bring in foreign workers have left farmers caught in the middle of a feud between the federal government and unions.
Greg Mowatt's been growing apples in Batlow, west of Canberra, for decades. Finally, back on his feet after the Black Summer bushfires, he's looking forward to a bumper crop.
Things are looking promising.
But a severe shortage of workers, made worse by COVID border closures, could mean up to 20% of next year's harvest may be left to drop and rot on the ground.
If we haven't got enough labour and we can't pick it, we have to make those decisions.
It's a problem farmers across Australia are facing, an issue the government's new agriculture visa was supposed to fix. But 3 months after it was created, not a single worker has applied because no countries have signed up to the program. The coalition accusing the Australian Workers' Union of sabotaging the scheme.
They should not be running around demonising Australian farmers the way they are.
The minister says union reps have been visiting the embassies of the Southeast Asian countries the program is aimed at, trying to convince ambassadors not to sign up.
Because they believed that Australian farmers would exploit their citizens, which is absolutely disgraceful.
We've spoken to ambassadors and will continue to tell them, and anyone else that will listen, that the new agriculture visa is dangerous and will pave the way for even more exploitation.
Untrue and un-Australian, says the minister, hoping Indonesia will be the first to subscribe to the scheme early in the new year. Rob Scott, 7 News.
A Learjet has slammed into a suburban street in California, killing the 4 people on board, but incredibly, no one on the ground. Investigators will examine the pilot's last conversation with air traffic control seconds before the crash.
Doorbell cameras catch the final seconds of this Learjet's botched approach to San Diego.
Babe, something just happened.
This one sounded just particularly low, and you kind of get that chilling feeling of just waiting for an impact, and sure enough.
A flash of light.
A jet just crashed, babe.
Then flames, fallen power lines and mangled fragments of the business jet blasted down a suburban street.
There's very little left of the aircraft. What's left is burned.
For the 4 on board, unsurvivable. For residents, unbelievable that the Learjet carved its path between homes, cars and people.
We felt like this giant boom, like shake up our whole entire house. I thought it was an earthquake or like a boulder from this hill come down.
So why did the jet come down 2 kilometres from the regional airport where the pilot had intended to land? National Transport Safety Board investigators already have some clues. In his last radio contact, the pilot appears to ask for more runway lighting.
Can you traffic lights for us a little bit more? They're at 100% now.
His next words, his last.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Ah!
Some here believe the fact no one on the ground was hurt is down to the pilot.
He gave his life to protect everybody else, and he's a hero. In my eyes, he's a hero.
In the United States, Tim Lester, 7 News.
Prince Andrew is arguing sex assault claims against him should be thrown out of court because his accuser lives in Australia. Virginia Giuffre alleges the Duke sexually abused her when she was underage as part of a trafficking ring run by sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now the Prince's legal team says the US court doesn't have jurisdiction to hear the case because Miss Giuffre isn't a citizen. Lawyers say she's been living in Perth and has spent less than 2 years living in America since 2002. Prince Andrew vehemently denies the allegations against him. The case will return to court early in the new year. Actor Hugh Jackman has revealed he has COVID-19, describing his symptoms as mild.
My symptoms are like a cold. I have a scratchy throat and a bit of a runny nose, but I'm fine.
It's forced the cancellation of his Broadway show Music Man. Taking your dog for a swim this summer might not be as safe as first thought, with our 4-legged friends more likely to drown than we are. Vets say teaching your dog to swim should be an important part of owning a pet.
At a pool in Sydney's West, poochers put their paddle to the test in swimming lessons to boost canine confidence.
A lot of dogs can't swim. They'll actually sink to the bottom, or they get very fatigued and they just can't save themselves.
Instructors and their floaties the helping hand as vets issue a warning over dog safety around waterways this summer. Particular breeds and pups with pre-existing health conditions can struggle the most.
Issues like epilepsy or other seizure disorders or heart issues. Dogs like French bulldogs and pugs and flatter-faced breeds that already have some issues with breathing.
For Karen Young and her beagle, Bagel, mobility was an issue. Her pup struggling to stay afloat.
He was only paddling with 2 legs instead of, staying balanced with all 4 legs and horizontally across the water.
Vets say, similar to human first aid, to resuscitate a dog that's experienced trouble in the water, you should lay them down on their side to clear out their airways, make sure they're dry before taking them to an emergency vet for assessment. But above all, a watchful eye is key.
Just treat them like you would a toddler around any body of water and your swimming pool.
Angelique Opie, 7 News.
Families will soon have a new place to go camping on the Mornington Peninsula. The state government's given the green light. Details next. Plus the car crash that forced residents out of their homes in Melbourne's north. A desperate call out for blood donors this weekend. And a long lost roll of film reveals a snapshot of Australia's past. Residents in Melbourne's north were forced to evacuate their apartments late last night after a car ploughed into their building, causing a gas meter to rupture and leak. The driver managed to walk away unhurt. 2 female passengers were taken to hospital. It took emergency crews close to 3/4 of an hour to make the scene safe. Holidaymakers will soon be able to pitch a tent at the old quarantine station at Point Nepean. The state government has approved the $4.5 million redevelopment, which will include toilets and a kitchen. Construction will begin in the next few months. There are fears of increasing crackdown against political dissent in Russia. One of the country's leading human rights groups has been outlawed, sparking concern. Vladimir Putin is stamping out reminders of Russia's bleak history.
Outside a Moscow court, speak out and you'll be carried away. As inside, judges delivered a ruling 5 years in the making, liquidating a human rights group for taking overseas funding.
We disagree with the decision. We think it's illegal and unjustified.
Saying they'll appeal the decision. The group, called Memorial, has been active since the end of the Cold War, combining human rights activism with historic research, mainly into the regime of Soviet leader Joseph Stalin, responsible for millions of deaths. Our work does not seem to please the Russian leadership, this supporter says. Some fearing the crimes of the Soviet Union are being scrubbed from history. Analysts believe it's another sign Vladimir Putin wants to instead glorify Russia's Soviet past as the threat of an invasion of Ukraine looms. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
A young photographer is on a mission to solve a mystery after buying what he thought was an old blank roll of film. It turns out the roll contained holiday photos taken nearly 70 years ago, and he wants to find the family.
Happy snaps from a lifetime ago, long forgotten until now. Gold Coast photographer Jared Yates bought what he thought was used film. The 21-year-old shot a roll and took it to be developed.
None of my photos came out, but we found out that there was already an entire roll of film that had been shot.
In unfamiliar fashions, there were familiar poses.
So much is different, yet everything's still the same. People get their family photos in front of their house with their dog.
A much less developed Sydney Harbour, Taronga Zoo before elephant rides were banned. HMAS Australia, the battleship that helped pinpoint the film's age.
They recommissioned it as a training vessel in 1950, so that kind of narrowed it down to, and then it was scrapped in 1955.
Another clue, this bus. The roll is the oldest Morgan Wagstaff has ever processed.
It's really like a time portal, just back to a completely other dimension.
Due to the age of the film, Morgan had to guess how long to let it develop. Another minute and the roll could have been ruined and the photos lost forever. Jared says the woman he bought the roll from was given it by a photographer friend who died around 15 years ago.
I believe that he may have been the person who shot these photos, and this lady told me that his kids may still live in the Tweed or Gold Coast area.
Now he wants to return the images to the family, their memory immortalised on film. Alex Lewis, 7 News.
The Red Cross Lifeblood urgently needs 3,200 Australians to roll up their sleeves by Monday. They say more than half of all people scheduled to give blood haven't turned up to appointments because they're in isolation or have COVID.
It takes 1 hour to come and donate blood, and it gives life and hope to somebody and their family for Christmases to come.
They particularly need anyone with A or O blood types to donate. Time for sport with Andrew McCormack inside Marvel Stadium, and Macca Josh Hazelwood is hoping for a quick fix.
Mike, we speak to the Aussie paceman on his fitness fight ahead of the fourth test next. Also, David Warner soaking up the spoils in the sun, already eyeing off a return bout against Stuart Broad on English soil. Also, two of the world's best face off ahead of a scorching summer of tennis. Celebrations in full swing for blackjack after one of the slowest ever Sydney to Hobart, and LeBron James at his brutal best for the Lakers. Welcome back to Marvel Stadium. A leading sports doctor is calling on selectors to be cautious with injured fast bowler Josh Hazlewood ahead of next week's Sydney Test. The Aussies spent the day soaking up the sun at the pub, with David Warner already looking to the future.
Josh Hazlewood with sights set on the fourth test.
How's the body feeling before Sydney?
Yeah, it's getting there. So feeling all right. So we'll see how we go.
Sitting out Boxing Day with a side strain, Hazlewood handed Scott Boland his baggy green. Now he could take his spot despite debut figures of 6 for 7.
What hoops do you have to jump through between now and then?
Oh, obviously bowl. That's the main thing. It's fine with everything else. So we'll see the next few days.
The sweet spot's normally around 3 to 4 weeks. So Josh is going to be right on that mark. And I think if there's any risk at all for this first week and a bit in January, they'd probably set him aside, I suspect.
Uncapped leggy Mitch Swepson also in consideration with an eye to Pakistan and Sri Lanka next year. Dave Warner thinking further ahead to 2023 and a return to England soil on the eve of his 37th birthday.
Hopefully, if I manage to get that chance and opportunity, I might think about going back.
Out to bury demons of 2019, removed 7 times by Stuart Broad, who has played just 1 test this summer.
I can't worry about what they're doing, but from our perspective, I think it's a great result that he's not playing.
First, a series whitewash to secure. As the Aussies basked in a 3-0 lead, England captain Joe Root and all-rounder Ben Stokes enjoyed a family day. The rest of the squad back to the MCG nets on what should have been day 4. Coach Chris Silverwood under fire for comments stemming from the innings and 14-run humiliation.
I think there are positives coming out of this, and as I say, I've got to give our boys credit for the way that they pushed back yesterday.
It has left him in a very precarious position because we all know that you are judged by results and performance, and both have been shocking this year.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Well, here at a very noisy Marvel Stadium, James Pattinson is hoping some of good mate Scott Boland's Ashes success rubs off on the Renegades. The paceman was on a high watching Boland's heroics and will look to kickstart the Renegades season when they face the Hurricanes shortly.
It was something with being close to him, I felt really proud for him, and then even last night we had a bit of a FaceTime after and he was out in the MCG with his medal and stuff, and it just makes you really happy to see people like Scotty succeed and then do really well.
Meanwhile, the Stars have welcomed back cult hero Haris Ralph. The Pakistan international will be out of Cricket Australia quarantine just in time for tomorrow night's clash with the Scorchers here at Marvel. Ash Barty has hit the courts at Melbourne Park to tune up for the Australian Open. The world number 1 joined defending champion Naomi Osaka on Rod Laver Arena for a session as she searches for her first Oz Open title. She'll head to Adelaide tomorrow for a warm-up event before heading to Sydney. Meantime, former US Open champion Dominic Thiem has withdrawn from the Slam with a wrist injury. It's another big blow after a spate of high-profile withdrawals, including Roger Federer and Serena Williams. Rafael Nadal, of course, still in doubt after contracting COVID-19. The crew of Blackjack is in party mode tonight after clinching a famous win in the Sydney to Hobart. Just over half the field is expected to make it to the finish line after a brutal edition of this year's race.
This is what it takes to win the Sydney Hobart. Blackjack entering Storm Bay last night, unrelenting effort in the face of a 25-knot southerly, then the agonising haul up the Derwent. Boat speed cut to 6 knots, but this is the reward. At 1:37 this morning, backslapping and handshakes all round, the cheers of the dockside crowd, and the sweet taste of victory. The slowest time in 17 years, 2 days, 12 hours, 37 minutes. Every second hard fought.
Yeah, it was tough in the beginning. The first 30 hours was pretty rugged, and then it lightened out. But yeah, great to get the win.
Skipper Mark Bradford seasick for the first 20 hours.
Oh, just internal problems. Mostly my stomach was coming out of my mouth.
Law Connect finished second, less than 3 hours behind. Scallywag only 15 minutes further back in third place.
And over the coming days, Constitution Dock is just going to keep filling up. Behind these 3 Super Maxis, 49 other boats. And while that number might sound like a lot, it really isn't, considering 88 boats started this 1,200 kilometre race on Sunday.
As of this morning, 37 yachts had retired with damage to sails, hulls, rigging, equipment and broken bones.
Tom Hartley, 7 News.
Liverpool's Mo Salah proved he is human after all against an understrength Leicester. The Red superstar missed his first penalty since 2017 and couldn't head in the rebound. The Foxes showed him how it's... The 1-0 loss is a big blow to Liverpool's title hopes. They're now 6 points behind leaders Man City. West Ham is up to 5th on the table after thumping Watford 4-1. And LeBron James has put in a performance for the ages. The King had 32 points, 11 rebounds, 11 assists, and this monster block against the Rockets.
Two big steps. Get it out of here. Blocked by James. There's the chase down.
Oh, not for the first time. It's his 5th triple-double since turning 35 as the Lakers won 132 to 123. Elsewhere, Steph Curry needed just 1 3-pointer to reach 3,000 in his career. He managed it with his 8th attempt in the Warriors' 89 to 86 loss to the Nuggets. Mike, that's all from Marvel Stadium, a very loud Marvel Stadium where we've had the motocross stunt riders revving up the crowd. Hopefully it can kickstart the other Renegades into action. They'll be bowling first here against the Hurricanes shortly, straight after the news.
You did very well, Macca. Well done. Thank you. Sonia is next with the forecast. And Sonia, a run of hot days has authorities on high alert.
They are, Mike. There is a heatwave advisory for most of the state, with the temperature set to spike on New Year's Eve. I'll have those details next. Good evening. We went back to back with another glorious day. The sky clear and the wind light, and we're feeling the summer vibes with a burst of heat just around the corner, and that means good beach weather is on the way. From a low of 11.9 degrees, the city hit 22.4, and we're still holding close to that now. It's a gorgeous evening for whatever your plans might be. Perhaps a walk outside with the temperature still sitting in the low to mid 20s around the city. Early morning fog settled in the valleys, as you can see in Gembrook, but soon enough the sunshine extended across the state. The northwest is the warmest place to be right now. It is sitting on 34 degrees in Mildura. A high to our west has been keeping us in a cool airflow, but that changes tomorrow as this high to our east takes over and tracks out over the Tasman. That's where it will dig in its heels for a few days, bathing the state in a warm airflow. So those warm winds are on track to develop tomorrow, delivering a sustained run of hot days. The heat peaking on New Year's Eve. It's also elevating the fire danger in Western and Central Victoria. So that heatwave advisory is in place over the New Year holiday. It just means to take care and factor that heat into your plans. Around the nation now, most of the wet weather has cleared in Brisbane, while it is warm and dry in Sydney, Canberra and Hobart. Back home, we'll get another round of patchy fog in the south. Then it is a warm and sunny day. Inland parts feeling the heat as temperatures rise well into the 30s, pushed along by light to moderate northerly. Closer in, early morning fog lifting to lots of sunshine. Winds will be light but warm with an afternoon sea breeze coming off the bay. We'll reach 30 in Frankston, but as high as 33 or 34 degrees in the north. In the city, our first maximum in 11 days with a 3 next to it. In fact, there are 2 3s, so we head for a high of 33 degrees. We're still going for a hot and dry 38 degrees on New Year's Eve, then 36 on New Year's Day before a cool wind change kicks in. We're down to 29 on Sunday, and then we're settling into a run of cooler weather early next week. But it is still hot and dry for your New Year's Eve. We should be sitting on around 26 degrees as we count down to midnight. And Mike, the skies will be nice and clear for the fireworks.
I'll take your word for it. I'll be asleep. Thanks, Tom. Now let's see what's on Sunrise in the morning.
Thanks, Mike. Tomorrow on Sunrise, get away in your own backyard. No planning and no COVID queues.
Victoria's best last-minute road trip. Start packing your bag.
See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's 7 News for now. From the team, have a great night.